Hello guys, welcome to my channel where stories filled with revenge, moral lessons and love are told. Before I begin, make sure you like this story, share it with your friends and subscribe so you don't miss more stories like this. I had spent 16 long years inside the walls of Aurelius Dynamics. To most people, that name meant nothing more than another faceless tech firm lost among countless others downtown. But for me it was where I built my life. I started as a junior analyst fresh out of college, scared, unpolished, but burning with curiosity. Over time, I grew into the backbone of their logistics architecture, the one piece no one dared to touch without asking me first. People came and went, CEOs were replaced, projects shifted, but one constant remained: my system. The logic I had woven into those servers, the predictive models, the live update chains, all of it ran like veins beneath the skin of the company. Without it, trucks wouldn't move, warehouses would jam, suppliers would stumble, and the entire rhythm of Aurelius would collapse. I knew it. The junior developers I mentored knew it. And the executives who bothered to listen knew it too. Or so I thought. The first time I heard about Damon, I was in the break room pouring stale coffee into my favorite chipped mug. One of the project managers leaned in and whispered, "They're bringing in a new COO. Hotshot from New York. Word is he's got no patience for old systems or old staff." I smiled politely and shrugged, but something tightened in my chest. Hotshots always came with fire, and fire cared little about the foundation beneath it. My first meeting with him confirmed my worst fears. Damon strutted into the conference room with the confidence of a man who thought charisma could replace competence. His tailored suit screamed wealth, his smile screamed arrogance, and his eyes carried the kind of dismissive gleam that made me feel invisible. He clicked through slides about restructuring, cutting redundancy, and moving toward agile frameworks. None of those words were new, but the way he tossed them around told me he didn't understand the gravity of the system humming quietly in the background. My system. When he finally turned his gaze on me, he said, "Marissa, right? 16 years here? That's impressive. But sometimes tenure blinds people to innovation. Don't worry, we'll get you caught up with the modern way of doing things." I felt heat crawl up my neck. "With respect, Damon," I said calmly, "the logistics chain you're proposing to alter can't just be swapped out like a battery. There are interdependencies you don't see. If you disrupt them too abruptly, the entire network could destabilize." He laughed. Actually laughed. Spoken like someone too attached to her own code. "Don't worry. We've survived bigger changes." I wanted to argue further, but I could already see it was pointless. Damon wasn't interested in listening. He was interested in proving himself. In the weeks that followed, I tried to make myself useful. I sent him reports detailing potential risks. I drew diagrams of the live update architecture, showing where one change could cascade into chaos. I even volunteered to train his new hires, bright-eyed graduates who barely understood the difference between real-time sync and batch processing. But Damon brushed it all aside. "You worry too much," he'd say with that condescending grin. "Relax. The future is faster than you think." Then came the meeting I'll never forget. A Tuesday morning, the air heavy with the smell of burnt coffee and expensive cologne. Damon summoned me to his office, the glass-walled kind perched high above the city, where the skyline looked like his personal kingdom. He didn't waste time on pleasantries. "Marissa, we've decided to let you go. Effective immediately." My heart stuttered. "You're firing me? You've done great work here, but the board wants to move in a different direction. We need people who can adapt quickly, not cling to outdated systems." He leaned back in his leather chair as if rehearsed. "Your severance package is generous. I'm sure you'll land somewhere else." For a moment I just stared at him, the weight of 16 years pressing down on my shoulders. My system pulsed in the back of my mind, every line of code, every handshake key, every safety net I had woven into it. Damon thought he was cutting me off clean, but what he didn't realize was that my presence wasn't optional. I stood slowly, my voice steady despite the storm inside me. "You don't understand what you're doing. That system doesn't run itself indefinitely. It's alive because I've kept it alive. Remove me and eventually it will choke." He smirked as if I just told him the punchline of a bad joke. "We'll be fine, Marissa. Don't worry about us." I gathered my things quietly. The mug from the break room, The stack of notebooks filled with diagrams and ideas. The photo of me and Brandon, one of my brightest minds, smiling after his first big project went live. I didn't make a scene. I didn't beg. But as I walked out of the building, I whispered under my breath, "You'll regret this." What Damon didn't know, what none of them knew, was that I had always planned for the worst. Long ago, after surviving one too many leadership turnovers, I had designed a safeguard. A hidden handshake key buried deep in the system's architecture. Without it, updates would queue silently waiting, stacking like bricks on a wall with no mortar. For days, maybe weeks, everything would appear fine. Orders would move, trucks would load, deliveries would arrive. But the heartbeat of the system, the part that kept it adaptable, resilient, and alive, would slow. One by one, cracks would appear. Small at first, then catastrophic. As I walked into the humid city air that morning, a severance folder tucked under my arm, I felt strangely calm. Damon thought he had fired his secret weapon. What he didn't realize was that in pulling the trigger, he had aimed it at himself. I didn't plan revenge. Not actively. All I did was walk away, leaving the system to its fate. But deep down, I knew time was on my side. And soon, Damon would learn the difference between arrogance and expertise the hard way. The first week after I was fired passed in eerie silence. I busied myself with small tasks at home, organizing shelves, watering my balcony plants, forcing myself to cook real meals instead of collapsing into takeout. But beneath it all, there was a quiet hum in the back of my mind, like a clock ticking. The system at Aurelius Dynamics was still running, still pulsing along without me, but I knew it was doing so in autopilot. And autopilot, no matter how smooth, could only carry them so far. On the 5th day, I received a message from Brandon. He had always been respectful, always eager to learn, and we had built a bond stronger than mentor and mentee. His text read, "Marissa, things are starting to look weird here. Orders showing as delivered before trucks even leave." I flagged it to Damon, but he waved it off. Said the reports were just slow sinking. Should I be worried? I stared at the screen for a long time, my heart aching for him. I typed back carefully. "Document everything you see. Keep backups of your work. Don't confront him again. Just observe." He didn't need to know about the handshake key, not yet. But his instinct was right. The unraveling had begun. By the second week, whispers began swirling through the company's downtown office. Warehouses reported mismatched inventories, suppliers claimed payments hadn't cleared despite confirmation notices, and delivery schedules grew tangled like wires in an old drawer. Damon kept brushing it all aside, holding flashy meetings about pushing forward and embracing new models. But panic seeped into the lower ranks. One evening, as I sipped tea on my balcony, Brandon called me directly. His voice trembled with frustration. "Marissa, the dashboards are lying. They show full trucks, but when we open them half empty. Clients are calling non-stop. Damon keeps telling us to restart the servers, like that will fix anything." I closed my eyes. The dead man switch was doing exactly what it was designed to do. Mask stability until the queues became unmanageable. Every missed handshake key stacked another unseen brick, and eventually the wall would topple. Soon after, I began hearing from others, not just Brandon. A junior analyst I had trained years ago sent me an email from her personal account. "We're drowning here. People are scared. They keep saying, if Marissa were here, this wouldn't have happened. But Damon refuses to even mention your name." The thought of my name spreading like a ghost through those hallways filled me with strange satisfaction. They had erased me with a signature on a termination letter, but my absence had written itself louder than any presence could. By the 3rd week, the unraveling could no longer be denied. Customers threatened lawsuits over lost shipments, warehouses overflowed with unsorted goods, and the stock price began to slide. The board of directors, once content to sip their coffee and nod along to Damon's jargon, started asking sharper questions. I imagined them sitting around that polished mahogany table, their voices laced with urgency. "Why are we losing millions in contracts? Why are our partners pulling out? Why do we suddenly look incompetent?" Brandon told me later that Damon tried to bluff his way through those meetings. "It's a transitional hiccup," he told them. "The system is outdated. We're moving toward modernization, but the old framework is fighting us. Give me time. But time was the one thing they didn't have. Every day meant lost revenue. Every hour meant another dent in their reputation. The breaking point came when a high-profile client in Chicago canceled a multi-million-dollar contract after 3 consecutive failures. The board could no longer ignore the disaster. They brought in an outside consultant, a man named Rowan, known for his surgical approach to corporate crises. His reputation preceded him. He had salvaged sinking ships before, but only by cutting ruthlessly and demanding clarity. Rowan arrived quietly, but his presence carried weight. He wasn't flashy like Damon. No talerderegens, no empty slogans. He listened. He questioned. He read through the documentation. And within 48 hours, he saw what everyone else had missed or refused to see. The system wasn't broken. It was locked. Brandon told me later how Rowan stood in front of the board, tapping his pen against a printout. This isn't a malfunction, he explained. It's a deliberate safeguard. The system requires a specific authentication key for real-time updates. Without it, data queues silently until the entire network collapses under its own weight. Whoever built this did it on purpose. And I'll tell you this much, it's brilliant. Silence filled the room. Then one of the directors asked the question that had been hovering in everyone's mind. Who designed this safeguard? Rowan didn't hesitate. Marissa. I imagined the ripple of recognition that must have swept through the room. My name, spoken aloud after weeks of being buried under Damon's hubris, finally reclaimed its weight. Brandon later told me that Damon turned pale, stammering about how I was stuck in old habits and clinging to outdated methods. But his excuses rang hollow. The board wasn't interested in his spin anymore. They wanted results, and Rowan had made it clear. The only way forward was to bring me back. That evening, I received a call not from Damon, but from one of the board's attorneys. His tone was cautious, respectful, as if approaching a queen in exile. Marissa, we'd like to discuss a consulting arrangement with you. Your expertise is uniquely required at this moment. I let him finish before replying evenly. I'll have my lawyer draft my terms. Because I knew one thing for certain. If Auralie's Dynamics wanted me back, it wouldn't be on their terms. It would be mine. When my lawyer delivered the terms I had written, I knew I was drawing a line so bold it could never be ignored. Triple my old salary paid up front. Absolute autonomy over the system. A single point of contact of my choosing. And, most importantly, no communication with Damon in any capacity. If they wanted me to put my hands back on the beating heart of their logistics, they would have to surrender control entirely. For 2 days, silence stretched. I imagined the board pacing, their lawyers frowning, Damon fuming behind closed doors. Brandon texted me updates in hushed fragments. Meetings are tense. People whispering about your conditions. Damon is losing his cool. It was everything I had expected. Pride battled desperation behind those glass walls, and I knew which side would eventually win. On the third evening, my lawyer called. His voice carried the faintest trace of a smile. They've agreed to everything. Payment is secured. You may proceed on your terms. I didn't celebrate. I didn't cheer. I simply closed my eyes and let the moment settle into me. For 16 years I had carried that company's pulse. They had cut me off with arrogance, but now they crawled back with humility, because they had no other choice. The first call I made was to Brandon. You'll be my liaison, I told him. Every message, every request, every update comes through you. You'll shield me from the noise. He sounded both stunned and proud. I won't let you down. That night, I opened my laptop. For the first time in weeks, I pulled up the familiar architecture of the system. The tangled mess they had created since my departure flickered across the screen. Queues stacked high. Updates locked behind the handshake key I alone possessed. It looked like a dam straining against floodwaters. One wrong touch, and it would collapse entirely. My fingers hovered over the keyboard. Then I entered the key. The effect was immediate. Backlogged updates surged through the pipelines, syncing data across warehouses, deliveries, and supplier accounts. What had looked broken moments before began to breathe again, the system pulsing with restored rhythm. I watched as the logs cleared line by line, trucks realigned with schedules, payments matched with invoices, dashboards shifted back to truth. Minutes, that's all it took. Minutes to restore what Damon's arrogance had wrecked in weeks. Brandon messaged me almost instantly. It's working. Marissa, it's all working again. People are cheering. I've never seen anything like this. I typed back, don't thank me. Just learn from it. But inside I felt a quiet, steady satisfaction. Not joy, not gloating, just the deep certainty that justice had unfolded exactly as it should. Over the next few days I continued to monitor the system, fine-tuning where Damon's reckless adjustments had left scars. Rowan coordinated politely with my lawyer, ensuring I was given everything I needed without intrusion. The board remained silent, but their gratitude seeped through in subtle ways. Approvals pushed quickly, payments cleared instantly, obstacles removed before they reached me. They knew the balance of power had shifted. And Damon? Word reached me soon enough. He was reassigned, which was corporate language for exile. His office emptied overnight, his name stripped from the directories, his presence erased as though he had never existed. I imagined him packing up his designer suits, seething at the reality that the empire he thought he commanded had been undone by the very woman he dismissed. The irony was almost poetic. He had fired what he thought was a redundant relic, only to discover I had been their secret weapon all along. And when they fired me, they had fired their future. As weeks turned into months, job offers began pouring into my inbox. Rivals of Aurelise dangled lucrative packages, startups begged for guidance, consulting firms promised prestige. Each message was another reminder that my value had never been tied to a single company's recognition. I was the architect of resilience and the world had finally noticed. But I didn't rush. I sat with each offer, weighing it not against money but against peace. Because more than anything, I had learned that no salary could replace dignity, and no title could erase the cost of arrogance. Brandon grew under my mentorship, handling responsibilities I once shouldered alone. Seeing him blossom filled me with a pride far richer than any paycheck. Rowan, too, reached out privately one evening, his voice thoughtful. You knew this would happen, didn't you? That's why you built the safeguard. Yes, I admitted. Because systems aren't just code. They're people. And people forget the value of what they can't see until it's gone. He was quiet for a moment, then said softly, You're not just an analyst. You're a strategist. Don't forget that. Those words lingered with me long after the call ended. In the end, I didn't need revenge to taste sweet. Life had delivered it for me. Damon lost his pedestal, the board learned humility, and Aurelise rediscovered the cost of underestimating expertise. As for me, I stood taller than ever, not because I fought for validation, but because I walked away and let the truth reveal itself. That's the story I wanted to share with you today. Not just about a company's downfall or a man's arrogance, but about the quiet power of knowing your worth. If you've ever felt dismissed, undervalued, or erased, remember this. Sometimes the best revenge isn't fighting louder, it's stepping back and letting the cracks expose themselves. So my friends, thank you for listening. If this story spoke to you, please like this video, subscribe to my channel, and share it with your friends. And don't forget to comment below, tell me what you learned, or the moments that struck you most. Because stories like these aren't just about revenge. They're about lessons, and lessons grow stronger when we share them.
Moral lesson.
Life has a way of reminding us that arrogance built on ignorance will always crumble. Expertise may not shine in boardrooms or dazzle with speeches, but it is the quiet anchor holding entire systems steady. When leaders dismiss the unseen, when they choose ego over wisdom, they gamble not only with stability but with trust. My journey through betrayal and return taught me something unshakable. You don't have to fight for your worth in places that can't see it. Step away, and let your absence speak louder than your presence ever could. Because when the cracks widen, when chaos spills into the open, those who underestimated you will finally see the truth they refused to hear. And by then you'll be standing stronger, choosing your next step on your own terms. Let this be encouragement for you. Never doubt the power of what you quietly carry. Even if the world overlooks it today, the moment will come when they have no choice but to reckon with it. Now it's your turn. Like, share, and subscribe, and let this story remind you that your value is never defined by the blindness of others. It's defined by the strength you carry within.